Kono bangumi wa goren no sponsor no teikyo de okurishimasu. Yeah.
Oh.
She fights evil by moonlight and wins love by daylight, and she never runs from a real fight. She is the one named Sailor Moon. She never turns her back on a friend. She is always there to defend. She's the one on whom we depend. She is the one named Sailor Moon. Or so the song goes. I don't see much defending going on, but there's certainly a lot of pummeling the shit out of foes. And fighting evil by moonlight, that's all well and good, but this is daylight, so the song is completely wrong. However, I can confirm that she is indeed the one named Sailor Moon. Or is she? I'm sure you're at least aware of the existence of Sailor Moon. This was a phenomenon back in the 90s, and it still has its fans today. It was a manga written and illustrated by Naoko Takeuchi, serialized in Nakayoshi from 1991 to 1997, and inspired an animated series called Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon, produced by Toei Animation and originally dubbed and localized by DeeK. These days it's licensed to Viz Media in America. That's the manga publisher Viz, not the UK adult comic Viz. And a quick Amazon search tells me, ugh, Funko Pops! Why must they make these hideous, disgusting figurines for every bastard thing in existence? I guess I might as well go over the general plot of at least Season 1 of Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon, seeing as this game we will be looking at today is based on its events. There's no need to go over the other 4 seasons or the events of the rebooted Sailor Moon Crystal, seeing as we're not looking at the other 34 Sailor Moon video games just yet. Yes, there's that many. If you're going to play one of the Sailor Moon games, you absolutely must play this one. So to give a quick recap, this is Usagi, a young schoolgirl who's not very good at studying. She loves to eat, and she has a crush on a college student. Sounds like my school years, except I wasn't a girl. One day, Usagi meets a talking cat named Luna, who teaches Usagi how to transform into the magical alter ego Sailor Moon. There's one caveat. With great power comes great having to locate the Moon Princess and battling the evil forces of the Dark Kingdom. Yes, the Dark Kingdom, headed up by the evil Queen Beryl. These monstrous Yuma forces sap energy from humans and force feed it to something called Queen Metaria, who is presumed to be their leader. To take on these otherworldly butthole invaders with relative ease, Usagi ends up joining up with a bunch of other girls who also gain the ability to transform. Together, they make up the Sailor Scouts and defeat each monster of the week while learning some sort of valuable lesson about love, or teamwork, or something.
Uranus, are you going to help her? No.
You might say, hey, I've watched loads of anime with this unoriginal plot. This blows. And yes, you might have watched shows like Pretty Cure or Glitter Force, Cardcaptor Sakura, or Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha, all of which have similar themes and ideas to Sailor Moon, which was by no means the original Magical Girl manga. But Sailor Moon revitalized the scene and is responsible for a lot of the tropes and story elements we see in the genre today. That's enough of a story recap. You know enough now that I feel I can do a review of this game justice.
So the little kittens are out without their mittens.
This is Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon for the arcades. It's a beat-em-up from 1995 and it's something of a treat, an unbridled joy. Many people will tell you it's overrated. They're wrong. It was developed by Gazelle, a team made up of ex-Toaplan employees after the company went belly up. This company didn't last long either, when Gazelle failed after all of just 2 excellent games. Some employees left to join Cave, a developer I'm very fond of. If you're not familiar with Cave, just look at this. This is a Cave game. Now you know. Glad to see the talent wasn't wasted. The Sailor Moon arcade game was published by Banpresto, who had the Sailor Moon video game rights at the time. The show had been around for about 3 years at this point, and the game manages to nail the art style perfectly. The game uses large backgrounds, full-screen animated special moves, and features incredibly detailed player and enemy sprites. You can play as any one of the 5 Sailor Senshi, and they all look rather fabulous. I'm a man of refined taste, and can confirm that Sailor Jupiter is very much on model and looking as beautiful as always. I love arcade games with nice big detailed sprites, and that's certainly what we get here. Nice detailed upskirt sprites. Where was I? This game looks the part for being based on Takeuchi's famous story and characters. There's a whole bunch of cameos from the cast, including the delightfully enigmatic Tuxedo Mask, turning up on occasion to lend a helping hand. Or to throw a rose. He doesn't actually really help at all. I think of all the obscurities to have pulled up, Rhett Butler is probably the strangest choice. But it gives us an excuse to beat the crap out of Bikene. We also have recurring villain Zoisite, the man responsible for many a confusing boner.
It seems to me that those 3 little girls are giving you a lot of trouble, Nephlite. Perhaps you need a little bit more of the feminine touch.
It's a trap! It's a trap!
All the sprites were drawn by hand and then digitized into the game. The excellent attention to detail is the result of what must have been countless hours animating by hand. These graphics would have drawn eyes to the game cabinet in the arcades. Even if you weren't a Sailor Moon fan, who could pass up on a game that looks this damn good? What I really like most about this game is how many enemies there are on screen at any one time. I've played a lot of beat-em-ups in my time, and I commonly see maybe 4 enemies on screen at a time, typically. In the Sailor Moon arcade game, we commonly see upwards of 10. While the enemy variety is small, the occasional recolor goes a long way towards making the enemy range seem larger. While the screen is swarming with enemies to defeat, you get the added joy of throwing enemies at enemies, so they knock down even more enemies. Combining that with those delightful, meaty hit sound effects when you land a punch, feel each and every one of them. While it's satisfying to clear a screen using your magic attacks, if a boss enemy is so much as moving when you use it, then the attack won't connect. Oh, what a shame, you wasted those 5 crystals you saved up. Knowing when to use a special move on a boss is basically a case of memorization and timing. Then again, this is an arcade game, that's kinda part of the territory. Quite frankly, the presentation is astounding. So it's a shame all that polish went into the sprites and not quite everywhere else. The music is never really great, or even good. At best it's adequate. At worst, it's this. What's going on with the melody here exactly? Better knock this soundtrack out as fast as possible, and they just slam the keyboard a few times. Nah, nobody will hear it in an arcade anyway. It's such a minor nitpick though. When the gameplay, voice clips, graphics and sound effects are so utterly fantastic. Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon is pretty good. It's a delightful coin-op that I can quite easily recommend, despite a few changes during localization, such as the entirety of the in-game dialogue missing. About the only genuine problem I have with it is the occasionally shite music. But hey, you can't win them all. It's a shame this never got a console port, ever. Even during the time everybody was porting their games to Xbox Live Arcade, the lack of this game on that system is baffling. But consoles did get something quite similar to the arcade game. A beat-em-up released 2 years prior, in 1993, for the Super Famicom and for the Mega Drive. And there's also an extremely rare French Super Nintendo release. If you're ready to blow an easy 250 squid on it, these served as the possible inspiration behind the arcade game. So we'll take a brief look at these. Compared to the arcade game, which came later, the sprites are less detailed, voice clips and sound effects are of a much lower quality, the enemy range is much smaller, the game runs slower. Pretty much to be expected, looking back. The developers paid close attention to making sure their Sailor Senshi have a large selection of abilities available to them, including desperation attacks and chargeable moves. All 5 Sailor Senshi are playable, which is pretty amazing really, given that Final Fight famously only had 2 playable characters due to cartridge limitations. To be fair, it also had a greater level of detail. Upon completing a stage, you're ranked on your ability. There are some significant differences between the versions. The Mega Drive version does not allow you to continue from where you died, but instead you are forced to return to the beginning of the stage. It's annoying when you make it through this slog of a Technodrome ripoff, only to die at the hands of Nefrit and have to restart the level over. Tuxedo Mask is all like, you call yourself a Sailor Senshi? If you're so great, why don't you actually fight, instead of just throwing roses? Who throws a rose, honestly? The Super Famicom version allowed you to continue from exactly where you died, which is a lot fairer in my opinion, but it fails to inform you that those continues you're burning through are actually a limited resource. Well done wasting them! Some of the bosses and areas are completely different depending on the platform. In the Super Famicom version, you enter some sort of time-space rift and fight Bikene, whereas the first boss in the Mega Drive version is just a regular enemy with a few more life bars than normal. The Super Famicom release is very streamlined. It doesn't bother you with cutscenes or exchanges or dialogue between characters, whereas the Mega Drive version is loaded with it. The Mega Drive version has a larger screen size and much better graphics, more music tracks, and an extra boss if you play the game on hard. The Super Nintendo version has 2-player support and has a much better ending. Usagi and the other girls combine their powers, defeat Queen Beryl, and revive Queen Serenity. The Mega Drive version instead cuts away to white text on a black screen, then shows your chosen character as they spout something in Moonspeak. The two versions aren't very different, so it's really a case of which platform you'd rather play the game on. So do you want better gameplay, or a better ending? Or do you want to play alone, or with a friend? Me? I can only play alone. I have no friends. So, Sailor Moon. It's got those boom anime babes that make you think the wrong thing. This has been SushiBites. Thanks for watching. Oh, and Merry Christmas, I guess. Wasn't this meant to be a Christmas special? Ah, never mind.